this is real. And then if it is real, there's no way the Republicans will actually pull this off. Is there? Alex Triantafilou is here. He's the chairman of the Ohio Republican Party. Alex, how you doing, sir?
Mike, good morning. Good to be with you. I'm doing well here in Ohio.
Good, I'm glad. Do most people think your last name is Italian or Greek as their first guess?
Well, I'll tell you what, you got it half right. My name is Greek, and I've heard all manner of different pronunciations, but I got to tell you, Mike, you got it perfectly, so thank you for your effort.
Listen, I don't mess around with last names. People have tricky last names, and I'll ask them. I'll say, how do you pronounce it? And they're like, oh, you can either do this or that. I'm like, no. There's no either or. How does your mom or dad pronounce your how would your grandpa pronounce your last name? And I want to do it right. So Triantafilou, or where do you put the emphasis?
You've got it exactly right, Mike. No joke. You've gotten it perfectly. And this is by the way, why I'm not a candidate and I'm just a political party leader. So.
Oh yeah, you would never win.
That's correct.
You could never.
That's correct.
There's no way. Your name doesn't even fit on a sign. You couldn't even put it on the sign.
No, sir.
To vote.
No,
you know what I mean?
not.
It doesn't fit on the back. Yeah, what a bummer. That's unfortunate for. But I'm glad you're running the Republican Party at least, because one could make the statement that there is no Republican Party that is thriving more, or maybe has made a bigger headway than the Ohio one. And maybe we can get to that in a minute. But let's get to the main story first. So I read the other day in Vanity Fair that the Secretary of State of Ohio sent a letter to the Democrats saying, oh, hey, by the way, Joe Biden may not be on the ballot if you guys don't do something different here. Is that true?
Well, it's true that he sent the letter for sure, Mike, and it's also true that Ohio has a deadline, an August 7th deadline for certifying your presidential nominee to the ballot. And that's what's going on here in Ohio. And, the Secretary of State actually called myself. He also called the Democratic state chairman to alert her to what was happening here in Ohio. And that is, in fact, the state of the law. Now, where this ends up, and I'm sure that would be your next question, that's anybody's guess. But I can tell you right now, that's the state of things here in Ohio. And the problem is, by the way, that the convention for the Democrats doesn't come until 2 weeks after our Ohio deadline, which has created this problem for Joe Biden.
All right, this is amazing. So Ohio state law says you have to certify this by August 7th, and the Democrats are not going to certify it until August 19th. It's amazing. So how could they miss the calendar that much? And how could there not be other states that are also like that? That's weird that it's only Ohio.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm not even sure about other states. I wonder if this may not trigger some of that in other states or a review of that. But,
yeah.
I mean, that's a problem for Joe Biden. And, the irony here, as you well know, Mike, is that, they have sought to keep Donald Trump, our nominee. And by the way, Ohio was among the first states in the country to endorse Donald Trump. But, we've seen other states seek to keep him off. We're not seeking to keep Joe Biden off the ballot. I want that clear to your listeners. It's just his failure, his campaign team and his failure, which, by the way, he's got a long list of those, that are creating this problem for him. So, I don't know if this is happening in other states or not, but it certainly is happening here in Ohio. And I think Joe, the last I saw from the Biden team was they're studying it carefully. Well, they ought to get to work because Ohio law has been in place for a long time.
So, just again to be clear, you're not seeking this. This fell in your lap. you didn't come up with it. So, what did you say when the Secretary of State called you and said this? And did you know that this was a problem before this person called you?
I candidly did not. We just, that's not something we do. We just study, the careful contours of the election law there to see. We assume the candidates are checking that themselves. So, it's fair to say I was stunned, Mike. I mean, I did not know this was an issue. And, I couldn't help, frankly, but chuckle a little bit, only because I know the efforts that they've made to block our nominee in other states. And again, they've affirmatively sought to do that. We're not doing that in Ohio. There's, I don't want to hear, and by the way, you're already hearing from the left, certain cries of hypocrisy in Ohio. That's just nonsensical. I mean, we've done nothing to block him from the ballot. It's his ineptitude, frankly, that has made this, left us in this situation. So, they've got to figure out a fix. And, my reaction though, again, was frankly a little stunned and assumed this would become a national story. And it certainly has.
Okay, so let's get to what's next. So either the Democrats need to move up their federal or their national nominating convention up 2 weeks, which they won't do, or the state of Ohio has to pass a law to change the statute. So last week or a couple days ago, no, Monday, we talked to the state senator in Nebraska, who proposed the winner-take-all electoral college bill. And when we first talked about that last week, we were like, oh, that's pretty cool. Nebraska, like they'll definitely pass it. They have a super majority in the state Senate, and they'll get that done, and that'll be one more elector for Trump, and that's great. And then it failed. And we're like, what do you mean? What do you mean it failed? So we had this guy on, and he's like, oh, yeah, like we have a super majority in the Senate, but 5 of them are from Omaha. And you're like, oh, geez, like Omaha's like Portland? Like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean? So they couldn't get it done in Nebraska, of all places. So what is the stance of the Republicans in Ohio on whether or not they're going to change the law to let Biden be on the ballot? Or are they going to be like, what? No, it's too late. We missed it. Whoops. What are they going to do?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I can't tell you as I sit here today exactly what they're going to do. I know this is a relatively new issue for our legislature. We do have Republican majorities in both the House and Senate and a Republican governor, and I'm hard pressed to see us pulling Joe Biden's fat out of the fire on this one. I really am. Again, I'm not. I don't want to get out ahead of where they are, Mike, and I frankly just haven't talked to either one of the legislative leaders on this. We've had some other things happening here in Ohio, candidly, but. We'll get around to looking at this, I'm sure. And but at this point, the Democrats have to propose a solution if it's going to be done there. But I can tell you what I know is probably obvious to you and your listeners is that this thing likely ends up in court somewhere. And at that point, it's very hard to predict, what ultimately the outcome will be. But look, I think as Republicans, we just need to point out the rank hypocrisy here of Joe Biden's team and his Democrats actively kicking Donald Trump off the ballot in other states, while he has a total inability here to follow our basic rules in Ohio. And, again, I don't want to rant too much here, but this is just the next fiasco of the Biden administration. I mean, this is the most inept presidency in my lifetime. I've not seen anyone quite this ill-equipped to be president. And again, this just is more of the same out of an administration that, of course, in my mind, just can't shoot straight at all on anything.
That's right. Yeah, the Ohio State Legislature has until May 9th in order to change this law. So they got 1 month to make it happen. By the way, pulling his fat out of the fire, an old Greek motto. I like that. Pulling. I've never heard that one before. Let's talk about your state. So I looked up your state legislatures, and Republicans are crushing it. It's not even close. It's like super majorities in both, looks like, which is fantastic. So out of 99 seats in the House, 67 are Republican, and of the 33 in the Senate, 26 are Republican. You guys are firmly in control of Ohio. Trump won the last 2 elections by 8 points. He's now polling a double digits ahead in Ohio. It's unbelievable. Why? What's changed in Ohio where a few years ago you were voting for Barack Obama and now you're not? What's up?
Well, you nailed it. I mean, at the end of the day, it is Donald Trump. And then again, this is one of those phenomenon that's, our corrupt mainstream press just can't cover this properly. But Donald Trump has changed states like Ohio. The shift, sort of the construct of the political parties has changed in America, and it's changed dramatically here in Ohio under Donald J. Trump. It was a 4-year period between Barack Obama winning the state and Donald Trump winning it comfortably. Donald Trump came to Ohio and said, I care about the Rust Belt. I care about manufacturing. I care about working people. He had a simple message that Ohioans love. He's got a special relationship here with Ohio, and that's really what changed. I mean, look, we did win a lot of gubernatorial races. We've held majorities in the state legislature for many years. Our Supreme Court is pretty conservative. But, Donald Trump just injected, a new energy into the party. And we saw a lot of just, people coming into the Republican Party. And, look, I'd like to tell you that it's, my organization and other things, but I'm being realistic, and I've been around this business long enough to tell you that the top of our ticket has been transformational, and President Trump has been, a major component to that. Look, we have other great Republicans in this state as well, up and down the ballot, and credit to all of them for running good, solid campaigns and talking to, regular people about the issues that matter most to them. But, again, you just can't deny Donald Trump's impact here in Ohio. And we think that's going to continue. That double-digit number makes the state chairman a little bit nervous, Mike, only because we got our work to do, and I don't want anybody to be complacent here in Ohio.
No, you're right.
But we feel very good about that. We've got a big Senate race here. Bernie Moreno's my friend and our nominee here in Ohio for United States Senate. That is a huge race to the future of the country. So, of course, we care a lot about that race and got to make sure all those good Trump voters stay on the Republican side of things and vote for Bernie Moreno for United States Senate.